We'd like to hear your story, so
I didn't tell you. I told you guys that story.
no.
What do you want me to start at?
I want you to start from the very beginning so that I can hear the story. Sir, cut it down some. I'm recording Dad and his story. Okay.
Well, it all started on a Sunday at the church. My daughter and I wanted to go flying in the airplane. We had this little airplane called an Ercoupe, no rudder pedals, and it was a fun airplane to fly. Well, we flew over to a local airport, River Ranch. Well, this is in July of 2007, and it was during the rainy season with afternoon thunderstorms going on. So we flew the 45 minutes over to River Ranch. We made an uneventful landing, and we looked at an airplane that had suffered a gear-up landing. And I said, "Okay, Tammy, let's get some fuel." And there's a thunderstorm coming this way. We're gonna race it back to our carrier. So, in my haste of putting fuel in the airplane, because it was a low wing, I neglected to securely fasten the right fuel cap. One thing about low wings is you can see fuel siphoning out if you don't put the caps on right. So Tam was flying the airplane, and we took off, and we got about a couple of 3 miles from the airport, and I looked over and I saw fuel siphoning out. So I said, "All right, Tam and Mickey, 180, we're gonna go back to the airport and tighten up the fuel cap." But during the process of making the 180, the pressure changed on the airplane. And I said, "All right, you know what, it's only a 40-minute flight. We have plenty of fuel. So what I'll do, I'll shut off the two mains and run off the header tank." I said, "All right, Tammy, you fly the airplane because I'm having a problem with my radio." So I had a little handheld radio, and I think I had a opening one of the antenna leads. So we're flying the airplane. And at this time, Tammy had about 60 hours of flying time. And so it's not that I'm a flight instructor, I was teaching her to fly, but I was just letting her exercise what she had learned. I said, "All right, Tammy, you go ahead and set it up for landing." And about 3 miles from the airport, we was observing traffic because my radio wasn't working. So we were a NORDO, a no radio aircraft. So as we was approaching the airport, we saw another traffic land on runway 32. Said, "All right, we're gonna land on runway 27." So we made out, left downwind, went out over the river, base leg, and I'm just watching her. And as we was coming into a final, I noticed we were high and fast, and she says, "Dad, I'm going around." I said, "Okay, good judgment," because that airplane has no flaps on it, so you can't slow it down. So she went around, applied full power, came on back up around, and then she set out a longer final. And again, she was hesitant about getting the airplane down slow and low. And again, she said, "I'm going around." I said, "All right." I said, "Okay, on this time, you followed me through." So we're both flying the airplane, and I went out about a half-mile final over the river. And we were slowing the airplane down. And slow the airplane down, I brought the power back, and I raised the nose to get an indicated airspeed I wanted, then you lower the nose. But for some reason, I couldn't get the airspeed low enough. And just about 60 feet over the runway, I was pulling the nose back to slow it down, and all at once I felt something wasn't right. And a nanosecond later, the right wing stalled and dropped. In between that nanosecond, I applied full power to effect a recovery. But at 60 feet, we did not have enough altitude to effect recovery. From the time the airplane stalled, everything went to slow motion. The airplane fell. The airplane literally fell out of the sky, and I felt as though I was helpless. After all my years of being in command and knowing what to do, I just felt like I was along for the ride. So at that nanosecond, when it started to fall, I looked out of the corner of my eye, and I see this very bright white object or being behind Tammy. And it seemed like I had eyes in the back of my head, and I saw the same white being behind me. And I surmised that there was Gable for Tammy and Michael for me. And as the airplane fell down to the ground in slow motion, I remember the right wing hitting the ground with an awful thud and crunch. A second later, the prop broke, the windshield cracked, the engine stopped, fuel doused us over, and I hit my head on the instrument panel and blacked out for 3, 4, 5 seconds. We hit the ground at an angle rather than going straight down. And when we hit the ground at that angle, we slid across an old runway, and we came to a stop about 100 feet later that I came to. We were both in the header tank has 6 gallons in the front, and when it ruptured, it doused us. And I told Tammy, get out, get out, get out. The only thing that mattered to me at that particular time was getting Tammy away from the airplane. If there was a fire, I did not want her in it because she was doused with gasoline. And me, I'm cutting switches off, which was probably a blessing because when we hit the ground, the battery broke. And so there was actually no electrical charges. And I got her away from the airplane, and I got out and I ran. And there was no, thank goodness there was no fire. But I was just saying that all the accidents I've read, people have not been fortunate to walk away. And they say any land you can walk away from, it's a good one. A couple of years prior to that, there was a flight instructor that told me he had a couple of friends who borrowed a Ercoupe exactly like mine. They took off and they had a catastrophic engine failure at the end of the runway. And they were low and slow, and by the time all they could do was put it down, and they hit at such an angle that the header tank broke, busted wide open, and the starter, which is right next to the header tank, sparked. And they were both burned to a crisp before the friends could get out to the end of the runway to save them. So that's why I'm saying that I believe in angels. I have always believed in them, but I have seen them for real for myself. And my near-death experience was that it was not time for us to go. It was not time for me to go and leave my daughter, or my daughter go and leave me. It was just that you have to stay ahead of the airplane. I know the reason I got complacent, because I had no rudder pedals, I didn't have a stall warning horn, I didn't have flaps. But now, whatever don't kill you, make you stronger and wiser. And my 3 new friends are airspeed, airspeed, and airspeed. Of course, altitude and all the runway I can get behind me. I told my wife and son, y'all come on out to the airport, because it was really a hard landing. Even though the airplane was not able to taxi on its own back to the tie-down, but Mr. White did an excellent job of making sure the airplane protects its occupants. And that is my story.